Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode, another week of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you for watching and for listening, for subscribing, following. Like I said, the start of another big week here at Talking Buffalo. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Anthony Marino, formerly of Buffalo Rumblings, on with me. We're going to go over a handful of potential non-wide receivers that the Bills could take with their first pick, much to the chagrin of my guest that I'm about to bring out here in just a quick minute.
Boo, wide receivers all day. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And then on Wednesday's show, much to the chagrin again of my guest that I'm going to bring on in just a minute, I'm going to be doing our second to last Buffalo Bills mock draft, this time with Aaron Quinn from Cover One.
Boo!
There it is. There it is. Thursday's show, my man Tom Bucks will be here in studio with me. Yay, I know. And then on Friday's show, I'm going to be live from Imperial Pizza, and I'm going to have Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic.
Yay!
We're going to, two yays, two boos. All right. Not too bad. 2 yays, 2 boos. Matt and I will talk, obviously, put a wrap on the Sabre season, see if anything happens with Don Granado. Plus, Matt's a football guy, too. So plenty of Bills and Sabres talk on that show. As for today, on the video side, you see him now. On the audio side, you heard him, as always, interrupting the intro here. We're talking Buffalo.
I like to be in the beginning of the week. It's good to be in the beginning of the week. Like I can see your lineup and go, okay, maybe I'd listen to him. No, I won't. Yes, I will. No, I won't. So I like that. I'm like the the audience pop. Hey, shout out to the video side people. There's one guy who hates me, who comments every week that he can't stand me. I like to give that guy a shout out in the YouTube comments. He's going to say I'm terrible. He said 99% of the time. So I'm trying to get to that 98%. You're
going to be a 1%er with this episode. You know, it's funny when I have you on, when I have Pucks on, I pretty much at this point have given up trying to have a real intro to the show. In fact, Tom was with me last week for last Thursday's show because he's actually here in studio with me. And I started the whole spiel, welcome, yada, yada, yada. And about 20 seconds in, I looked at him and he hadn't given me that stupid face that he usually does where he's getting ready to interrupt me. He hates ad reads. He hates the intro. He just wants to talk. And before he even got the chance, I didn't give him the luxury of interrupting me. I interrupted myself and said, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'm not even going to do it because I just know you're going to interrupt me anyway. Anyway, my man Joe from Queens here to kick off this week of Talking Buffalo. We're going to spend a nice chunk of time, even though it's not new news. You have not been on the podcast since the Stefon Digg trade. I know you got a lot to say about that, so we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to spend some time talking O.J. Simpson. He died late last week. In fact, I had just recorded a podcast, or I was in the midst of recording a podcast with Jay Skursky when that had happened and didn't really hit on that at all. So we'll share our thoughts on that as well. Gotta tell you, before we get cooking real quick here, kind of wish I was in New York City right now. I wish I could trade spaces with you geographically, because the New York Knicks won on Sunday and they ended up finishing with the second seed. And man, I'd love to be in New York for a Knicks hopeful playoff run. I know you're not a NBA guy, but you like basketball.
I haven't followed it this week, like since I started a new job. It's been a little bit tougher for me, but I knew they were good this year. I had no idea they got the second seed. Like, good for them.
They just got on the last day of the season here. Yeah, wow. They leapfrogged Milwaukee. They won. Milwaukee
Randall not playing is big for them. Unfortunately, that stinks.
They're still good though, man.
I mean, look, considering the Knicks they've been terrible since like since 2000, I would say, where they've been better as of late, like the last couple of years, but they've been horrible. They were horrible forever. Like,
sure. They were embarrassing for James Dolan. Was probably
I always consider the Dolans like a little bit like the Pagulas, where the theory has always been with the Dolans is that they have the Rangers and they have the Knicks, and Dolan is way more into the Knicks than he is the Rangers, and the Rangers for the most part have been okay for like the last 20 years. They've been to the Stanley Cup Finals once, whereas the Knicks have been dreadful, and he's involved way more And like with Pagula, the way, you know, the theory or the rumor around the campfire is he's more hands-on with the Sabres. That's why they're a disaster, and he likes the Sabres more. Whereas the Bills are better because he's not as hands-on on it.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, but
in
yeah.
that regards, plus the fan base hates both owners.
Yes.
Well, you know, not the Knicks fans. Again, over the last 2 years now, then the Knicks have really turned it around. But the Knicks sucked for years.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, he kicked Charles Oakley out of the arena, and that was like his Pat LaFontaine, like Terry Pagula kind of thing, when like he jettisoned back, like we're never going to hear from him ever again, probably. But yeah, wow, good for them to get the second seed. I still think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be the Celtics going all the way in the East. Like they're just loaded. They've been trimming all season. The West is loaded. Like the West is so, you know, they're incredible, and it's cool with like this. You know, you have a little bit like the Timberwolves are awesome this year. We've seen the Timberwolves be good like 1 year where they had Sprewell and Garnett, and they just came out of nowhere. Even though A-Rod couldn't buy the team, which was kind of hilarious how that whole spectacle went down. But yeah, it's going to be – I'm going to try to watch some basketball, but it's tough when you have a baby and I'm working West Coast hours. But
sure. You know, I would say, yeah, I when it comes to the Knicks, as a big New York Knicks fan, I almost want them to finish in a third seed because I just think Indiana would have been an easier first-round matchup. They're going to play – whoever wins the play-in game this week between Philly and Miami – they're going to play them. Both those teams are down this year, but they got star players and playoff experience. Mm-hmm. But the upside is if they can get past one of them and they go on to play Milwaukee in round 2, the Knicks will have home court advantage, which I think if you got any chance to beat Milwaukee, that'll be good. But anyway, enough about basketball. Most fans don't give a shit about that. You know what they do give a shit about that I know you don't give a shit about?
Content. OTAs are starting tomorrow, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. You want to let's spend the whole episode.
God. Wide receiver. Like, I can't wait to hear Josh Allen be smiling, and then the Bills bros are going to be like, oh, he's happy now because Diggs is gone and he's now relaxed and he's got a blue collar wide receiver room. I can't wait for all that shit. It's gonna be
sarcasm aside, what I do look forward to seeing this week, and literally the only thing about potentially with OTAs is, and again, we're taping this on Sunday evening. Most people are going to be listening to this earlier on Monday, and the Bills are kicking off OTAs. I do wonder if Josh Allen's going to speak this week.
Yeah.
And if he does, I'm interested in what he'll say. Now, Josh Allen is not that guy. He's not going to say anything controversial. Even if he's feeling some kind of way, he ain't going to say that shit in front of a live mic. You know what I mean? Where reporters are there and fans can listen. I mean,
but I do feel like if he gives any sort of wiggle room, it will be stretched out. Like, oh, he said this, or he had a pause. Like, yeah, he normally, it'll be interesting to see how they react to the Diggs news.
Yeah. Well, let's go here with this, okay? And again, I'm calling this episode the working title of it is Diggs fatigue, and I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, because quite frankly, for the most part, I think there's a lot of people out there that are probably getting tired of talking about Stefon Diggs. I'm also using that working title because this is the term that Jay Skursky, who was on the show with me last week, used, not as his opinion, but as a title to describe why, from what he's heard, that the Bills ultimately moved on from Diggs. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play just a portion of the clip that I have from Jay from last week, talking about what he heard. And then after that, I'll kind of sort of like give you the floor, and we'll kind of like go through like maybe some layers of it. I know you got, like I said, a lot of thoughts, and you have not had your chance to put your 2 cents in about that. That's why you're on the show. That's why I have you on every week for your takes, for your thoughts, for your opinions. So anyway, let me quickly play Skursky's comment. I'll cut it off after the Diggs fatigue part because what he feels about Stefon is not really relevant to this conversation. So here's that clip. Play that first.
They're moving on now, right? It's true with Poyer. It's true with Hyde. It's true with Mitch Morse. Now it's true with Stefon Diggs. So I think and I think a lot of the reporting on it has been pretty spot on, that it's a nuanced reason for this trade. It's not one simple reason, right? But I can tell you through some conversations that I've had with people who would know in the organization that there was Stefon Diggs fatigue, I think is probably the best way to phrase it. But I think that's
All right. So that was Jay last week saying that the organization felt like it came down to Stefon Diggs fatigue. I'm going to turn it over to you. I want people to know this too. I say the same thing about Tone Pucks. I'll say it about Joe for people who might be new to this show. We ain't the kind of dudes that will say, just in everyday life, Joe will be like, well, I like this. I'll be like, oh, I like this too. Or I'll say that, and Joe will be like, oh yeah, I completely agree. Joe and I are going to disagree about some shit on a day-to-day basis. We're kind of like Josh Allen and Stefon. We're friends, but we don't agree with a lot of shit. Tone Pucks, same deal. You see him every week here.
I mean, both me and Tone have been exiled out of the Talking Buffalo family before, so that's how it's real, guys. Like it's real. We don't like each other all that. It's like a work shoot. No,
work shoot. We always use wrestling shit. We work ourselves into a shoot, but I just want people to know that. So sometimes I don't know how this is going to go because I have not had you on the show to talk Stefon Diggs until now. But if I agree with you, I'll let you know. If I don't, I'll let you know. Anyway,
all right, let's get to it. Let's get to it. All right.
Okay. How do you want to start this?
I think there's like 5 different layers I kind of want to go through. I want to talk about the football side of it, the fan side of it, the media side of it, and like the organizational side to it in terms of that. I think we should start with the on the field first. And I feel I do not like this move. And I'm going to tell you why. The main reason I don't like it is there is no contingency plan as of right now. Even if the Bills draft a wide receiver at 28 or they trade up, and get someone, it is still to ask for that wide receiver to be just as good as Stefon Diggs in his rookie season is, I don't want to say impossible. Like he could be good like a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, but that is just a hard ask. And even if they get his replacement, they still, going into this draft, needed another wide receiver. So, like, you decided, hey, screw this. We don't like his tweets, and we'll get into, like, why they don't like him, the organizational part of it. But, like, the football side of it, to me, does not make sense. You gave this guy a $31 million contract extension. You got dead cap galore this year. And I'm glad, like, hey, next year they're going to have some space. They'll probably sign 55 defensive linemen, and we get to 86 Bears or 85 Bears. Who the hell knows? Whatever Bears defense is great. I just don't like how they're doing this with. Now, in terms of the season that Diggs had, I think there's a little bit of like there's definitely people have turned heel on him, and I'm not here to say like they like, I get it, like in terms of like what he's tweeted, etc. But like, it went from, oh, he's still in the prime of his career, he's still good, to all of a sudden everyone's like, oh yeah, he was on the downside, he's a diva, F him. Like, no, like their offense after Brady took over, it changed. I don't care what anyone said. Watch the stupid games. Okay, they became more of a balanced team. They didn't throw the ball as much. Josh Allen's numbers went down this season collectively. They did. Compare his year this year to 2020. It is definitely different. He was still good, great, but he wasn't the same guy he was in 2020, 2021. He wasn't passing as well. And part of it, in my opinion, was they just wanted to get James Cook involved way more. And then the other thing too, I think about like the drop against the Chiefs. I have never in my life seen a drop. This drop is being treated like Ronnie Harmon dropped the football.
I agree.
I'm just like, guys, like they went down even if they scored then, there's a good chance that Mahomes is going to score again. And we're going to go back and forth because the defense couldn't stop anyone. And also, what about all those throws? Like I talked about this before. Like, what about the throws Josh Allen missed this year? I want to go to the Miami game, the finale against the Dolphins. Stefon Diggs had a really good game. He had 87 yards receiving. He was locked in.
And he cooked Jalen Ramsey. It was 5 yards open on a bomb. Would have been an 86-yard touchdown. I remember the play. And
Josh Allen completely missed him. He catches that gives Diggs like 170 yards for that game. And we're talking about, oh my God, like who are the idiots that were saying this guy is over the hill or making a big deal about it? That's where I have issues with the football sense of it. I think it's stupid. You get rid of him and you don't have it. You needed another wide receiver with Diggs on this roster, and now you need 2. At least at the max. And then it's like, and then to diss him and say like, oh, down the stretch, he wasn't good. It's like, again, they changed their offense. I like watch the film. Like, what do you think? He just like all of a sudden he hit the wall when he was like he became like, oh my God, it became fall. I have to go to sleep. Or Thanksgiving got him like fat. Like what? Like give me a break. Like he was still there, and I just that's that on the football side of it. I think a lot of it we're all talking about, and I get it, like the fatigue and all that sort of stuff. But on the field, how does this make this team better? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
All right. Well, let's spur kind of to keep this in layers. I will respond in only a football sense. Forget about anything with any discontent among other players, coaches.
And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I just want to talk about
football
the football
field. All right, look, I know it's going to sound like I'm taking the easy way out. I'm probably going to do this more than once because I'm still a little bit conflicted about Stefon, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to play both sides of the field because or fence. A lot of what you said is right. The numbers could be first of all, more than anything else, I think it's complete and utter stupidity and bullshit that the last thing people are going to remember is Stefon Diggs making a drop. It was a horrible drop. Okay. There's no getting around that, but it sucks that that's going to be the last on-field football memory of him. That's not fair. That's dumb. And the Bills still drove down the field and still should have scored a touchdown on that drive. And even if they score, like you said, Chiefs might win. People are, which I think fans just tend to do. They want to feel better about themselves. So they tend to find excuses and blame for things, maybe to make them feel a little bit better. Anyway, so that's bullshit. I do think there were some plays. We just talked about that Miami game, and he cooked Jalen Ramsey. He probably was open on 3 or 4 bombs that Josh missed him on late part of the year, that if you complete even 3 of those, that's another 250 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. So his numbers certainly should have looked a little bit better. That I agree with. And also I do agree with you that the offense changed some. Joe Brady, I'm sure much to, Sean McDermott's joy and delight, started running the football more, having a more balanced offense. Some of this ties into, though, I think, about how they felt about Stefon with Devin McCourty, what he allegedly said to Tim Graham stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. But production-wise, I mean, it's really hard to dispute that it did go down, and the team went 6-1 down the stretch. The offense was scoring just as much, just in a different type of way. And man, and then in the playoffs, look, I mean, this game, this Kansas City, that drop aside, 9 playoff games Stefon Diggs played with the Bills, just 2 touchdowns. So I mean, on the field, and he's also good, 31 years old, man. I mean, I think the decline was coming. I don't think I agree with you about another thing too. I don't think a rookie's going to make them better this year.
Do I think a decline is going to come? Yes. I mean, it all time. Time has no boundaries. Whatever cliche you want to do, but I don't think he was at that. Like he was going to get 60 catches next year. Like or something like that.
Fall off the cliff.
He's not. I don't think he's falling off the cliff yet. Like, and that's all. And again, look. The passing offense on this team did fall down. Like, where's the outrage? I mean, you hate him or you don't like him, and I don't like him all that much either. Where's like the Dawson Knox? Where's the Dawson Knox excuse? Where's like the other like wide receiver excuses on this club of like, Gabe Davis had a terrible year. Like he went AWOL for like 3-4 weeks at a time, and it's like it wasn't.
He'd have one good game a month, big game a month.
As I said, I call him the bill collector because he showed up once a month, and that was it. And like the thing is like it seems like everything is on Diggs. Oh, well, look at him. Everyone across the wide receiver like passing offense dropped. The only one who didn't was like Kincaid because he's new. And
well, let me give you evidence of that you're right. I'll give you evidence. 4 top receivers from last year, none of them are back. Diggs is gone. Gabe signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They didn't re-sign Hardy. In fact, they cut Hardy, I'm sorry, who, by the way, literally just re-signed an hour or so ago on Sunday evening with, or not re-signed, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Trent Sherfield, I don't even know where the hell he is. He's not in Buffalo, though. So, I mean, their top 4 receivers from last year, they're all gone. They're all gone.
But like all of their numbers were bad last. I mean, for the most part, I mean, I thought Diggs, as I said, like, yeah, he had a hot start. It cooled off, but like, I'm taking him over those guys any day of the week in terms of what their seasons were. It just, as I said, and like that stretched. Look, the Dallas game, they didn't pass at all. And I'm not saying they had to. Like, I get it. Like, Dallas,
right.
they didn't need to. But that's a game. Like, well, I'm going to yell about Diggs. I'm going to complain about Diggs and go, oh, well, he's over the hill. And I'm going to go. And I'm just going to play the tape of the Dallas game and go, how is he over the hill? They didn't pass the ball. Like, how is he? Like, I just have a hard time believing that he hit a wall. And and it just and again but the biggest thing to me is what I've been saying since 2021 on this podcast, they needed to draft another wide receiver, and at least they needed to get one. They should have got one probably last year if they felt like there was, because it seems like, and we'll get into like when did this all start with Diggs? Like, it seems like this has been like a year at least in the making that he's not happy. Then you should have drafted a wide receiver last year then, or got someone to be the heir apparent. And now they don't have an heir apparent. We're gonna have to this wide receiver, whoever they pick, and God help if they go for an edge rusher, I'm done. Don't even call me in the podcast. I'm not coming on that podcast the next day. But if whoever they get, that wide receiver, if they get in the first round, that guy is going to have the most pressure of any player since Josh Allen of getting drafted. It's not even debatable because of the shoes he's filling in, and at the fact that they don't have really a wide receiving core, and that people like me are pass hungry. We want a passing offense. Balance gives me agita thinking about that. I just don't want that. And that player is going to have a lot of pressure on him.
Well, let me say this. All right. I feel like in terms of on the field, like the reasons why Stefon Diggs is not a Buffalo Bill anymore, I think the fact that if people want to say he fell off a cliff, let's just say people want to say that, I think that's not the biggest reason. I don't think that's the biggest reason. I think the biggest reason has more to do with the locker room and just the discontent, which we're going to get into in a minute. I agree with you today. I might, but, not to back what Brandon Beane said, but man, dude, it's still April. They might go up if they draft anyone, even if it's Rome Odunze, even if they get into the top 10 and go get him. I mean, this guy is a stud prospect. Plus, unlikely, and I don't personally think it's going to happen, but Brandon Ayuk, if they were to trade for him or T. Higgins, that is an upgrade over 31-year-old Stefon Diggs instantly. I'm not saying, and I don't expect it to happen. As we're recording this, though, that part I do agree with you, but I think we've went as far as we can go about beyond the field. Like, why is Stefon Diggs? Why did he get traded? For people who think it's because he's not any good anymore, I really don't think many people, unless they're lying in themselves, think that's the reason.
I mean, I have seen even media guys saying that they think he's in the twilight, that he's going downhill, and they keep citing his second half. Like, again, I don't agree with that.
Is he washed up or twilight? Those are different, though.
Okay, but I still think it's BS because everyone in the passing, everyone on this team struggled receiving, and he was the guy who was the best of them, and he still had decent numbers overall. And again, they switched their offense, and like, I don't think that's getting talked about enough. And now it's just like, oh well, he's gone now, so let's bury him and pretend like he was he's in the twilight already. Okay, so anyway, let's go. Let's talk about let's go to why he's unhappy, because I have no idea. Like, I've read the reports. I've read Tim Graham's thing, which is a lot of it is like moody kind of, it feels like, and like people in the organization didn't like dealing with him, but it doesn't get into specifics really. They talk about that Jets game where he was in the locker room with Josh Allen, and I don't know how, I mean, you could go into either way on that story with him talking to Josh Allen and Josh Allen yelling. Like, you could say, well, Josh Allen acted abrasive, or like, what did Stefon Diggs say to get him so angry or whatever? I go back to Tyler Dunn's piece like 3-4 months ago. We talked about that. We talked about it a little bit. Like, I know you did a manifesto with him about it, but that article made Sean McDermott look like everyone could not stand that dude. And I'm thinking to myself, let's go back. Let's go back in time. He wasn't there for the voluntary OTAs. It was a big deal. McDermott was concerned. This is last year. Then we were like, what the heck just happened? He left. And then the next day, McDermott like apologized or whatever that weird shit was. And I think deep down it was an issue between him and the coach. That's what I think it is. And I'm just putting 2 and 2 together of the Tyler Dunn piece, what happened last year with him like not going to OTAs or the voluntary ones. And let me just say this. I don't care if you don't go to voluntary ones. I am team do whatever the F you want to do in the offseason, okay? Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, used to not go to Patriots voluntary OTAs. He had his own personal trainer. He did his own shit. He did not care.
Agreed.
And as long as you're playing well, I'm good. Like, do whatever you want. Now, to me, Sean McDermott has always been a bit of a micromanager. And that's how I read Ty's report. That's how I felt about it. I think that is what ultimately just ended it with the Diggs. And that's what ultimately ended Diggs in Minnesota. He did not like the coach. The coach, Mike Zimmer, I kind of feel has a little bit of McDermott in him, like in terms of a defensive-minded guy who's kind of a dick. And, you know, in Minnesota, what happened was they started running the football more, which, bingo, what happened this year? They started running the football more. And I think there has not been enough reporting or even like discussion about why Diggs wasn't happy here. It's been just all these little kernels of truth of, oh, he's a diva, like stupid shit like that, which I hate that term when talking to a wide receiver, or his tweets. Like, there just hasn't been like, and I just think to myself, look, I think it's the head coach. I go back to that Tyler Dunn piece and like the wide receiver coach who everyone loved on this team. I think people were pissed he left. And I think Diggs was really tight with that guy. I think that added it. And I think a lot of those reasons are why he is not here. More so than anything else. Like, and you can tell me what you've heard. We can talk about the Josh Allen and rumors and the night before the Bengals game and all that crap that's out there that could be true. But on the surface, what I have seen in terms of reporting, that's where I'm at with why he kind of wanted out. He was sick of Sean McDermott. He wanted to do his own stuff. And Sean McDermott is Sean McDermott. He is the emperor, dictator, coach's coach, whatever. That's my take on why he didn't like it here.
Well, there are layers to it because there's different reasons, and Sean McDermott is absolutely one of them. This goes back to 13 seconds. I don't think Stefon Diggs ever forgave him for 13 seconds, and maybe he shouldn't. Okay?
Yeah.
And the Josh Allen stuff, I'm going to tell you, man, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. It ain't just bullshit. It ain't just rumors. They've had their ups and downs. I'm not saying they're not friends, but they've had their ups and downs. Let's just put it that way. It's been a wishy-washy kind of relationship, and to the fan who just watches and listens what is shown publicly, Josh Allen always says the right thing. He always defends Stefon Diggs publicly, no matter what. Jay Skursky talked a little bit about it on the show. Tim Graham has talked about it some on his podcast and in his reporting. There's a lot of shit that just wasn't. Stefon Diggs was not an easy person to get along with. And I guess when it comes to him, when it comes to life, I think no matter what it is, there's a saying, and I use it all the time, is the juice, and not O.J. Simpson, no pun intended, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think for the Bills, when you factor in his age and the fact that they, maybe even on purpose, Devin McCourty allegedly told Tim Graham that the Bills looked like they were trying to prove that they could win without Stefon Diggs last year. That is an all-pro safety saying that. That's not some idiot.
No, I remember he said there was another guy who said that too. I forgot who it was. Like, they watched the film and
Jay Skursky talked on the show. I can't remember who the player, James Jones, a former wide receiver, kind of said the same exact thing and Jay was talking about it on the show last week. But when I say is the juice worth the squeeze, I think it just got to a point where between his relationship with Sean, maybe, I don't want to speculate too much, but the wishy-washy relationship with Josh, his age, them having some success, maybe changing the style that Sean McDermott wants them to be, that the juice was not worth the squeeze. And last point about that too, I mean, if you're even thinking, if anyone's even like, I don't know about that, put it this way. The Bills had Stefon Diggs on the team and were $27 million against the cap this year. Then they traded him, and they got $31 million against the cap. So their cap is actually worse by trading him. I mean, no matter what way you look at it, and I'm not saying it's his fault. I think it's a combination of everybody, but especially Sean, by the way, because a lot of what you said about Sean, I think you're right. But my point is this. They said that we would be better off trading our number one wide receiver and losing and eating even more cap money than keeping him on the team. And that's tell you that shit's going down. It went
but
bad.
That also makes me wonder, like, what is their threshold? Like, are they just like, because we'll talk about wrestling here. I'm a huge CM Punk fan. I love CM Punk. I know he's a prick. I know he's a dick, but he's worth having on your roster because he's the man. And if you can't handle it, it's like, I feel that's a you problem, because look at what he does for you, like for your company. And I'm of the impression, like, of what I've seen reported about Diggs's issues. Like, no offense. I don't care if he bristles at the media. I don't care. Like, sorry. I've always maintained that for the most part, I get what the reporter thinks. Some of them think like they want to bust down that door and be like, I'm the media and you need to answer what I have to say. I don't care, because 95% of the time the player quotes are vanilla, milquetoast, whatever. There's nothing to it. So I don't care. What annoys me is if I feel like your writing and your takes are being jaded, or you're not being objective anymore because you hate this guy. And I've seen a lot of markets do that. I've seen it done in Buffalo. I've seen it done with Marshawn Lynch. I saw it done with Mario Williams, even Stevie Johnson. A lot of that when that relationship sours, everything starts becoming like, ooh, like you view this player differently if you're a media member. I've seen it 100 times. And I think a lot of that happened here where, if Stefon Diggs talked, I think more, and even if he was lying, which he did, he lied a lot. Like, obviously, he wanted to retire a bill. He said that during the Super Bowl week. Obviously, he was kind of lying. But again, I go back to the threshold. Like, what is the Bills like? What is that? I brought up Ryan O'Reilly, and then you yelled at me when I brought this up on Twitter, because I think you didn't understand what the point I was making was. Once Ryan O'Reilly said, "I don't like it here," or I'm not, like, I've lost whatever his quote was. I forgot what it was. His joy is gone. They were like, we're done with you. Like, in that, and I feel like once they were just done with Diggs, and I think to myself, well, you have to pay for this. Like, sometimes you have to cater to a star. I've worked in television. I've heard so many stories about TV hosts and people who make $20 million a year, and they're divas, and they're like crazy, and they're nuts, and you put up with it because of what they bring to the table. They're putting food on their table, on Josh Allen's table, and all these other people. You have to sometimes put up with it. And I'm sorry if at the end of the day I have not read anything that I can sit there and go, they got to get him out of time. Like, no, like what have we read? We've read this is how I figure things out. We got the PR thing. I think the Bills PR did not like Stefon Diggs. I've heard that before. I heard that last year they didn't like him because he had his own PR people. He was not a fan of that, or they were not a fan of that. And I know for a fact that if you bring your own PR people, if you're like a big time player and you have your own PR staff, the Bills are not happy with you. And I think the Bills people made sure that the reporters knew that. And then I think a lot of it was like, let's poke into this thing of Stefon Diggs' dilemma. And so there's that, and I'm just like, well, I don't care. Like, he didn't want to do interviews locally. I don't give a shit. Sorry. The Maddie Glab thing, I have no idea. I listened to the Maddie Glab commentary when that happened. She did sound like to me that she did not like dealing with him. And I have no idea what happened. I don't know if he went to her, like, she wanted him to do a freaking fashion show on Bills.com. And he was like, F that. This is small time and get the hell out of here. I have no idea. There has not been enough substance for me. And then tweets. I don't care about tweets. Oh, so
tweets don't got nothing to do with it. I can tell you this. Of all the stuff why Stefon's not a Bill, the tweets mean the littlest. I'm just telling you. Well, maybe not the last one. Maybe the last one might have been.
He might have known. No, he might have known he was getting.
He might have known already because he asked for a trade. He asked for a trade weeks before that. I'm telling you that he asked for a trade. He wanted out. I know that. Again, going back to I want to bring up a point, get your response, and I got to take a quick break here. But going back to the whole juice, is it worth the squeeze? I just think they got to a point where they didn't feel like his whatever, just call it a diva, call it whatever you want to call it. And I agree, man. A lot of the best artists, a lot of the best musicians, actors are probably all goddamn weirdos. You know what I mean? That drive people
and
nuts.
Let me just say this. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I just think it got to that point, and I think they think of Stefon Diggs as a football player now, as a guy. I don't think he's an elite player anymore. He's a good to great player, but not elite, and maybe not worth the headache. And also, kind of referring back to the Stefon Diggs being a difficult person at times, maybe to deal with, some jealousy. And I've heard a lot about jealousy between Stefon with Josh Allen specifically. Let me read something to you from a guy who's not in the media. He used to be in the media. I know he's not like pro media or he's not pro fan. Brad Ryder. I think you would admit that Brad is a relatively kind of in the middle. He's going to give you his opinion, and it's not going to be because he's a former media guy or he's a fan, blah, 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 blah. This is what he said. Just one quick paragraph about this whole situation. He says he thinks it was the Kansas City 2021 game that was the end for Stefon Diggs in terms of his loving being a Buffalo Bill. A, because he blew the game in 13 seconds, but also because of his role and how that game played out. Brad said, things were great when he was the stud wide receiver bringing along Josh Allen. But once Josh became the man, especially with Gabe Davis's performances that day, it started falling apart. You feel like there might be some truth to that?
I don't, only because if that was 2020,
2021.
I could see that because that's when he first got there. But he helped Josh Allen his first season here in 2020. Mm-hmm. So like he made, so why he made him then. So like then like why wouldn't it have happened then? I think Brad's trying to say that once Josh, Stefon brought him along, and then once Josh became the man, and he had an unworldly second half in that 2021 game without Stefon Diggs really doing anything that game, and that kind of planted the seeds for what would be Stefon. But then Diggs still had a great 2022.
2022.
Yeah. Awesome. He was still great, but it's possible. My whole thing is the timing. Like, I mean, I do agree that 13 seconds may have ended the confidence he had in McDermott. And look, that confidence, it's still shaking for me. I know people have Bills amnesia and they view that 5-game winning streak as everything's done. And that's no, guys, they still lost to Russell Wilson. They still lost to Mac Jones. They still looked like crap against the Jets the first game. There's still a lot of there. They also did lose to the Chiefs.
They almost lost to the Giants. I get it, man.
There's still a lot of that. I'm not forgetting that. And maybe Diggs was there with that in terms of I can't go any further with these people anymore.
Sure.
I don't know, but I just feel overall on the Bills universe it's all one-sided against Diggs. And there's nothing. No one really wants to find out the bad side of it. And I think a part of it is there are media people who want to listen to, who don't want to rock that Bills access, and they don't want to they don't want to go, and they just don't care. They don't care enough to piss off. They don't want to piss off the Bills. But then at the same time,
you gotta let me get to a quick break. Let me get to a quick break. Come back on the other side of this, and then we'll continue. More talk about Stefon Diggs, when went wrong, why he's not happy. We'll be literally right back. All right, I am back here with Joe from Queens, and again, we are talking Stefon Diggs, Diggs fatigue, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all. Joe is and then you've admitted it many times, you're typically a pro player guy, which, a lot of times I am as well, and you definitely have some strong feelings about Stefon. Before the break, you were talking about how you feel when it comes to the media and maybe now fans. I think my interpretation was that you were saying it's pretty one-sided against Stefon. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, it's this, but it's also no one has tried to dig and find out why he was unhappy. It's all through the Bills' point of view, which I don't think have been strong enough. I get this guy out of here. And I'm not saying it's like it's hard. I get it. Like Stefon Diggs did not want to talk to him, so they're probably wondering, well, Joe, like, what would you recommend? And I don't know. Like, you call his PR people, you call his brother, you call teammates that are close to him. Tyler Dunn kind of got, like, when he wrote his piece, he basically said, like, don't bother Stefon Diggs to come to OTAs, and he was kind of lukewarm on McDermott. Like, that was the first thing that we got of this is how Diggs feels, where everyone else hasn't gotten any of that. And I know it's hard, but I think at the end of the day, it's just we don't, and he's probably not going to care. Like, I don't think he cares about what people in Buffalo think anymore. Like, he'll go to ESPN if he wants to get his story out.
That sucks. That sucks because he was so good. He had the best 4-year stretch of any wide receiver in the entire history of this franchise, man. He was a special player. He was a legitimate special player, and I wonder about that. It's like, why? And here's the thing. Talking about this before, Joe. I don't know why he wasn't happy. I know that he wasn't unhappy. I know that he had issues with Sean. I know he had issues with Josh. I know he had issues with plenty of things in the organization. He didn't think they could also beat Kansas City. I know that part.
He might have also
get why he wasn't happy. I still don't understand it.
Well, as I said, that's why I've been trying. I think it was the coach. I think the coach wore on him. He might also think, look, they're in transition right now. And, like, I know you and I, like, we've kind of on the same page with, like, the Poyer, Hyde leaving, Trey White leaving. He may look at that and go, man, those are guys I played with for 4 years. Those are guys who are Pro Bowlers within the last couple of years. Even if they all weren't, like, because of injuries, he may look at it and go, like, the writing's on the wall. Like, like, you talk about, like, the phase 2 of the phase of Marvel, and like that, he might look at that and go, that phase is done. Why am I still here? Like, I'm the last guy left.
I don't know that he said. I think that might have played more into why the Bills dealt him. And I'll tell you why real quick here. Poyer, Hyde, Trey, guys, only a handful of dudes on this team that can kind of keep Stefon in check. And those dudes are all gone now. So if Stefon's unhappy and he ain't got those leaders that are right alongside him, if not even maybe above him in terms of seniority and respect in that locker room, if he ain't got those dudes to kind of keep what he might say out loud or whatever on a leash, man, that might even get worse. And that might be even more the organization say, yo, we got to move on now. I don't agree with you about taking a step back, though. I still think, and it's too early to know, but because they're not done adding, I still don't know another team in the division right now that's better than the Buffalo Bills. I really don't, because Miami hasn't done shit this offseason.
The Jets worry me if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. They worry me. They have an awesome defense. They got some good skill guys. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't go, if Aaron Rodgers is still goodish, they can be an issue. But going back, but the thing, as I said, with those guys leaving, I feel like maybe Diggs saw that, like, these are his friends, these are his guys that he's been there, and maybe he's just like, this is odd, this is stupid, and like, I should go, But here's the thing, like, for me, look, I give a giant leash to players, especially like wide receivers. I grew up with, like, wide receivers being scrutinized, like T.O., Randy Moss, Chad Johnson. All those guys, to me, were way worse antics, quote unquote, than Stefon Diggs. Like, I never saw publicly. Sure, but that's all I can say. That's all I can base this on. I don't know anything else. There has not been, until someone has a report that says this is what happened. This is why Matty Glab hates Stefon Diggs, or this is why, like, he stopped talking to Josh Allen. He told Josh Allen, don't talk to me, or something like that. Like, a manifesto. I'm just like, where am I? Like, again, Tim Grant's stuff. I've listened to Tim Grant's podcast like a lot, and all that stuff he mentioned in that article, aside from the Jets Allen thing, which I'm not really sure why that didn't get out. I get his reasoning because he didn't hear Josh Allen, what Stefon Diggs said.
He didn't hear what Stefon said.
And I thought that was a little weird. And, like, I guess other reporters were there and no one said anything, which I thought was even, like, the cynic in me wanted to say, like, well, maybe you didn't want to report that, because if you did, the Bills would have went to you and yelled at you because it's the sanctity of the locker room. If you do that, then, like, they could have made a war. He denied that. He just, like he said, like you said, he said he didn't hear them. I don't know. I mean, if that's his reasoning, fine. But no one else, like, went to bat on that. But other than that, all that stuff he had mentioned, I like, the thing with his brother and like tweeting, like, his brother, Trayvon Diggs, right? That's his guy's.
Get him up out of here, Trey.
Yeah,
Trey,
and like,
get him up out of here. Get him up out of Buffalo.
And
Get
like,
him away from Josh.
Yeah, and like I get why you want to ask him that question. It is relevant for that person. And like media does cover that. I was watching like a month ago. I was watching ESPN and they were like big drama in Dallas, and I'm like, ooh, what the hell's going to happen? It was Dak's mom fighting with Micah Parsons' brother on Twitter. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, who cares a shit? Like, and like, but like that now matters now, I guess, in the scope of things. But I never, for the most part, I was just like, whatever, his brother, like, let his brother talk shit. And, just the stuff that has been out there that has sourced out, just, I never was like, this guy's got to go. And I would have been, if there was something that I don't know what comparison I can make this to, but as I said, I've been in this town where I've seen people make Mario Williams wanting a mini fridge into the biggest spectacle of all time. Okay. And I remember that year, and like, that some of the guys are not there anymore, but there's some guys still there who acted like Mario Williams asking for a mini fridge was the biggest diva request in the history of diva requests of all time. And like, I like Marshawn and like Mario Williams, I hope I said Mario Williams, but like him doing that, and like Marshawn Lynch, like, oh, well, he brought liquor into the freaking Bada Bing or whatever. I don't know. And I was like, I don't care. Like, why do I care? And that's, and what I see is it's just, I don't see, there's not been something where I go, yeah, they had to let him go. Like, I just have, and it just feels like to me, it's an organization. Sorry. It's an organization that I feel they have a bit of a Napoleon complex of it's our way or no way. And that's their right to do that. Okay.
Sorry. So it sounds to me, let me finish my point now. It sounds to me like the biggest thing that you need to know is why he wasn't happy. I think that's a fair assessment to say. You factor in all this stuff. And the one thing I don't think you are accounting for enough is we could talk about, is his on-field production slipping? Is he going to fall off an edge soon? We could talk about the team switching, and they're going to run the ball more and be more balanced. And they want Dalton Kincaid to be the next Travis Kelce, and they want different types of receivers and yada, yada. We can talk about all that stuff. And we can talk about how the media treated him. We could talk about how fans treat him. I think the one thing that's getting overlooked in all this is, dude, he wanted out. He asked for a trade, and all the factors that we've talked about combined with the fact that your boy did not want to be here.
And that's what I want to know. And we don't know. That is my big thing. Why would you want to leave? That's my thing. And the only thing I can logically put together is he was sick of Sean McDermott. Because again, going back to the Ty Dunn piece that had 25 sources and he had everything down, that's the only thing I can assume, because that is the only thing that's out there that I can say, like, this is where and like you said, the 13 seconds. Look, the 13 seconds after that game, he was heated and he was angry and he was yelling in the locker room. Ty Dunn had that in the 13-second article that he had a couple years ago. And that's like, I get it. Like, he wanted out. And like, look, there are things that got wrong. Everyone has egg on their face about Stefon Diggs in terms of what happened. I knew from last year, I felt there was something up with the Bills, that the Bills weren't happy with him, because there was a lot being made about the Cincinnati behavior, that weird shit with the OTAs last year. Like, I always felt like the Bills were just being weird and being kind of controlling in a way. And I think that's what I thought, like, I was a little bit right on, because obviously there was something there. I was totally wrong about Diggs not being happy. Like, I thought he was happy. I definitely bought into his quotes in the media. I bought into Josh's quotes. And, it's so funny. Like, you look back on that, and like I said, everyone was on. Like, I remember last summer, Stephen A. Smith came on in August and was like, he wants out of Buffalo. And then like Diggs denied it. And like every Bills media person just buried Stephen A. Smith. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Clown show. F him. And then like, guess what? He was right. He was right at the end. And no one, it was always this after it was weird, because prior to last offseason or last training camp, there was this tidal wave of like Bills media guys being like, he needs to talk. He has to talk because he hasn't talked since the Bengals game. What's going on? Like, and I that whole time I was like, there's nothing going on. Like, he shrugged. He was pissed. He left. Like, big deal. And then he came and go ahead. Well, I'm just going to say, then he came, he talked, and a lot of people thought it was over. Like, he talked the first day, and he was like, "Oh, it's fine, everything's great," and everyone was like, "We're done, it's great, like mission accomplished." And then whenever a national person talked about it, it came on Twitter like, "Oh, this guy's full of shit. Don't listen to him, and he's wrong." And you know, I was in that park, like, "Oh yeah, it's full of shit." And you know, I obviously was wrong. Look, I was wrong in terms of that. Go ahead.
Do you think part of it might be that he's more than just a diva? That part of it might be he's just straight up could be a problem in the locker room. I'm talking about. He could be, you know what? I know a lot of people in various fields that are so good at what they do, but they're kind of assholes. And I'm not necessarily saying that Stefon Diggs is an asshole, but I think to a certain extent this has something to do with it because, again, I keep saying the same thing. Is the juice worth the squeeze? If you have a company and your manager is somebody that, man, he just doesn't get along with anybody. He's always bickering. He's whispering under his breath. He's always pissing somebody off. He's clashing with other managers. He's clashing with this. At some point, it's not everyone else. It might be that guy. But that dude is producing for you, man. He's making you record-setting profits. He's elevating your business. You're like, yo, the juice is worth the squeeze. Then at some point, it's the same behavioral stuff, the same things over and over, like Jay described as Diggs fatigue.
But again,
you know, it's just not worth it.
Jay or Tim or Tyler or freaking the ghost of Larry Felser has to tell me what those fatigues are. Like,
Tim did. I think Jay did too. Tim said it was not. And this is why I think you, to some extent, me and many other people are like, well, what the hell happened? I think Tim's being truthful. Tim said, so did Jay. It's not one thing. It's not one big blow up. Pat and Joe have a big fight, and then we don't talk for 8 months, right? That's not what happened with them. Even Tim saying it was, he said, death by 1,000 microaggressions, just a bunch of little things that just added up and culminated. I think that's what it comes down to.
I just don't think those micro were that bad. That's all.
Maybe.
And look, as I said, in sports, you're going to deal with people who don't like each other on the team. And until I get a sourced piece that says player source says he hated working with Diggs, another player source says Diggs was out for his own or whatever. Until I get something in that realm, I don't know what you want me to say anymore. Like I get it. I need someone to tell me, because everything else, the death by the paper cuts to me just. They were just pinches. I don't know. That's just, and again, I am of the mindset of I want a star player. I thought that losing him now is a big miss because they don't have an heir apparent behind him. And
not now, it's gonna
they don't. But this, as I said, this season, if they stay at 28 and they get a rookie, to ask that guy to be a 100 catch, 1,200 yard guy, good luck.
Don't think they need it. I don't think they need it. This is not me being a Bills homer right now. I don't think they need it. I think they need somebody who could do what Stefon Diggs did in the back half of last year, along with Kincaid and Cook and Shakir emerging and stuff like that. This is where I don't agree with you, though, about when it comes to Brandon Beane, you know, whether it's to draft, whether it's to trade. I think Brandon Beane badly wants to come away with somebody this offseason who most will consider an upgrade over 2024 Stefon Diggs. Brandon Beane wants to win this. Brandon Beane wants to win this trade. He wants to win this trade, Joe. And I think we're fooling ourselves if we don't think he's taking this Stefon Diggs divorce a little bit personally. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I saw your tweet and no one agreed with it.
Well,
but
I don't care if they agree. It's the truth.
No, I hear what you're saying. But until that happens, I'm here. Like, what am I going to do? Like,
I get it.
Look, if they get Brandon Ayuk, hey, sign me up. I'm great. Awesome. Then I'm
delete
like,
this podcast and
delete this podcast, delete all my tweets about being upset. I will go there. But until then, I'm just like, and like, again, like, it just, I don't know. It sucks. I was so pissed. I like Diggs a lot. I thought he was a great player.
He was a great player.
I think he still can be, and I think he's still good. I think he's going to a great situation with the Texans. Like, why don't you like Stroud? Why?
He's going to a great team. He's going to have a chance to win. Dude, he's not even one of the best two receivers on his own team anymore. He's not even He's not even one of the best two receivers on his own team.
So he'll still get the ball easier because other people are going to be worried about the other players.
He is not putting up.
All right, whatever. We'll see what happens. I don't agree with that.
They know that. That's why they made it a 1-year contract. Let's give him some money. Keep him happy for a year.
Last year, Waddle and Hill both had great years, and not this past year because Waddle was hurt. But in 2022, they both had great years. You can have 2-3 wide receivers have a great season. In 2020. We'll see. Hey, you know what? Cole Beasley had 83 catches, and John Brown, if he didn't get hurt in 2020, would have had like 80. But anyways, I think I wish they would have had a better plan. This felt like just a bit of a panic move of we can't handle him anymore.
That's what it was.
But again, until I see you keep saying like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Until I see what the hell that was in the juice or in the orange, I'm going to say, well, it was worth the squeeze. Okay. Cause I don't know like what we're talking about. Just I think
this part's a discussion we need to have before training camp because we don't know what their roster is going to look like. Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel and Justin Shorter are not, and Matt Collins. That's not going to be their top 4 receivers. Dude, it is right now though.
I'm telling you this, man. The worst case scenario is that, you and I have talked about this a little bit about this being like the copy of the Carolina Panthers of the Cam Newton years, where it's just like they're going to have, it's all going to be about the defensive lineman. We got to run the football, play 2 tight ends, balance attack. Sean McDermott wants his stupid defense to be fresh for the entire season, so we need to run the football more. And I'm just like, why? Like, this is a passing league, blah blah blah. I've been a dead horse about, or it's like being a dead horse with me because I've said this on every podcast. And I think getting, when I was on our re-debut, my repackage, if you will, we'll call it. I told you like they were rebranding. I told you that they were 12 personnel was coming back, and you laughed at me. You were like, "No, it's not. It's coming back next year, man. It's coming back."
We'll see.
I know you have hope. Look, I get it. You have hope that Bean is pissed. And he's going to go, I got to come back with a stud wide receiver. I got to win this trade.
I have hope we can talk about OJ for a couple minutes before we get off the air here.
Yeah, let's talk. Oh, my God. Yeah,
I know you. And look, I say that, with pun intended there sarcastically. You brought up a lot of good points about Stefon Diggs. And I know it's been on your mind since the trade. And like I said, you haven't been on the show since the trade. And I thought you brought up some very reasonable, fair points. I think you want to know why more than anything else. But at this point, though, until we do learn, if we do learn, whether it's from Stefon himself, whether it's from source reporting, I just don't feel like there's anywhere else this conversation could go where we're just not kind of like spinning in the mud.
Let's say this, and then we can go to juice. Get ready, and I know you're going to hate me for saying this. Get ready for so much content about how happy the wide receiver room is, and how Josh Allen's got a smile. Stella got his groove back in training camp, and everyone's happy. Get ready for all the memes of Josh Allen in shorts, the new handshakes. Get ready.
Every year,
they already got a Shakir Bills embedded coming soon, but he's playing with a dog. They got to put that big smile on. They got to do all that stuff. I can't wait for that content. I can't wait. That's why I'm off in August. That's why I'm not coming on here in August when the 6th rounder from this year is going to be like touted as like he could be the next Stevie Johnson.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
let's talk. We're done. This is the end of Stefon. We'll see. Oh wait, you know what? One more thing. Oh come on! You're gonna kill me for not mentioning this.
Go ahead.
The relationship with Diggs and the fans. I understand why fans are angry at him. Like,
this is gonna turn into 15 more minutes, isn't it?
No, I'm gonna be 1 minute. I'm gonna be done. I understand why fans were upset. Like everyone thought he was staying. He left. But if the guy tweets out "rest in peace" to one of his friends, and your reply is like, "Here's a Stefon Diggs drop. Here's all that shit." Like,
you're scumbag. Then
he can like a tweet that says you're bitter because you are bitter. I'm bitter too. I'm pissed off he's gone. So that's all. That's all I wanted. That was my bow on that. So that's
agreed. And and look, man, fans are going to be fans, and at the end of the day, that's a very, especially people who are interrupting a rest in peace tweet to somebody who we cared about. That is a minuscule percentage of fucking jerk offs who are going to do and say something stupid like that. So I'm not even going to say that represents Bills fans. Anyway, listen, man, I want to get an OJ real quick here before we get done.
Sure.
Bomani Jones put out a tweet the day OJ died, man. I was like, man, this tweet is spot on. And he said, word for word, today we will get the answer to the age-old question. What would Twitter have looked like in 1995. That's holy shit, man. Twitter, I don't know how much you paid attention I think it was last Thursday, because that's when OJ died. But holy shit, Twitter was what you think it would be in 95 if we had it back then. Hard to separate. And I know people have written about this, so I'm not, making up anything original here, but the artist from the art, and that can be tough for some people. Some people go too far with it. And especially, by the way, if you're old enough, and I'm not condoning it at all. Fuck the hell no. But if you're old enough to be a Buffalo Bills fan and you were a teenager or older in the 70s and you watched the dude play, you probably fell in love with him. Charming celebrity, turns out to be an alleged fucking multiple murderer. It's just, I'll turn this over to you for a second. Man, it's just wild because, I love R. Kelly, his music, but he's a horrible fucking person. Ditto, I think, with probably Michael Jackson, you could say as well. No, I know it's a lot different than somebody who's killing people and stuff like that. The celebrity status versus what he did on the field, stuff like that. I don't know. What was your take on all this? What was your take to the reactions from OJ dying last week?
The reactions I thought were pretty fine for the most part. I think most people are like, yeah, he's a scum. I think people are like, yeah, he's a scumbag. He killed people. I do think if Twitter was around then, it's funny. I think about this, when I was a kid and I watched this trial, I was like 14, 15 years old. And OJ, let me just give it a little bit backpedaling. I obviously didn't watch him play, but OJ he was a transcendent giant celebrity to Buffalo at that point. It was him.
Biggest one ever.
He was the biggest one because unlike Jim Kelly, he's big in a small pond. He's big there. He does Collide Health. OJ was a guy who was a movie star. He was in commercials. He was on NFL and NBC. He was on the 12 o'clock show. He came on. He was always in Buffalo. And he always put Buffalo over. And look, we know that it doesn't take a lot to be a celebrity, a Hollywood celebrity with Bills ties. Oh, hey, you're that guy Fitcher who's the seventh lead in every movie. You like Bills? Come on in. You're going to lead the charge. And you're going to be the voiceover for all of our series. It does not take a lot. And that guy always put Buffalo over. And I remember as a kid being like, I like this guy. Oh, wow, he's putting this over. He's an announcer. My dad likes him. And when all that stuff happened, I kept going back and forth about whether he was guilty or not as a kid. I kept thinking to myself, how could he do this? You want me to compare what this would be like, I can't even name a bill if this bill murdered that person or it was accused of that. It would be Peyton Manning. That's the thing I come up with, a guy who was done Saturday Night Live, who's done he's on broadcast, he's on the Manning cast, and he has this wholesome image of this guy is the greatest, and he's smart and he's funny.
That's a great comparison.
There's no one on the Bills. It's not Josh Allen, because Josh Allen's Josh Allen. He's great, but he's not a transcendent guy. But I feel it would be like Peyton Manning killing someone. And that's what it was. And for that whole time, I was kind of I kept going back and forth because I remember not to relive the case, but the whole defense was the LAPD planted everything. And I think if the case happened today, I think more people would believe that, because now the cops are not exactly the cops at that point. As a kid, I don't really remember people hating cops as much as they do now. And I think now they would have been oh man, Mark Furman, you usually hear those tapes, he's saying the N-word.
No one talks about him. He played such a big role in OJ ultimately getting acquitted, man.
The two things was that those Furman tapes and the gloves. Because I remember when he put on the gloves, I was like, they're not fitting him. What the hell's going on? And then if you watch the OJ ESPN one piece, they had the 30 for 30, whatever, they had the 10 episodes. The defense attorney, one of the defense attorneys said, "Oh, he just took off his arthritis meds, and his hands just got huge, and that's why he couldn't fit in the gloves." They admitted that when they did that special 5-6 years ago, and I was like, "Shit, well, I didn't know that. No one told us that then." And it was a trial of the century. It had everything. I think it changed how the media coverage was. I'm not talking at a local level, but sensationalism, where it's I think like people like Donald Trump, like I'm not talking now, but like in 2014, 13, when he wasn't running for president or anything like that, we had to talk about him or what he thinks about this, because people love celebrities and they love when a celebrity has issues, and that whole thing changed everything, because he was you came home from school at 3:00 like I did, and the OJ trial was on until 7:00.
Most polarizing thing of my lifetime, pop culture wise, television wise. It was the most sensational, polarizing, must see thing I've ever seen in my entire life ever.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And like, because you bring up Michael Jackson and R. Kelly. I get what you're saying. That's
first art. That's the artist first art thing.
My whole thing is OJ's way more known as the guy that killed people than he is a football player. He just is. Like that's
90% of people. Yes. Not to old people.
Not to locally. Maybe not that. I mean,
around the world, absolutely. Sure.
Around the world, people know Michael Jackson anywhere. Like, oh yeah, like he's probably more of that first. He's has had an effect on people who are artists. OJ has not. Like he's been, but that was like the trial of the century. And like, I just remember, like, I was in denial because I didn't even watch him play. But again, I was a fan of what he was like with the Naked Gun movies. Like he was like Berman, like Kyle Brandt meets an actor. I don't know. Like I'm thinking Kyle Brandt, everyone kind of likes his ass, but like that was just like everyone liked him. Like he was a star. Like he was bigger than I kid you. He was bigger than Jim Kelly, and his post career,
bigger than Jim Kelly.
Post career, he was way bigger than him, way more popular. And once that happened, and it's just crazy. Like the trial was done. Buffalo did not want anything to do with him, aside from like, he would come to a game here and there, and people I think there would be people who wanted to take photos with him just to be like, look at me, I'm with OJ. Yeah, he's a murderer. Who gives a shit? Like he just, that guy got, he got out. Like they pushed his ass out. We never he was out like of that circle of trust in Buffalo. Like it was over,
Of course.
And you can't blame that, but like, it was just, it was an insane, that whole trial changed everything. It changed television. It changed race relations. It changed viewing of the police and like race, everything had to do with it. You couldn't.
It was, again, at the very beginning of this podcast today, I talked about the New York Knicks, and I'm a big New York Knicks fan. I'm excited to be watching the Knicks in a playoff run, and I wish I could be in New York City for it and go to the games. I remember I was a Knicks fan back in 94, 95, one of those years. I can't remember. I think it was 94. But anyway, it was 94. I remember watching the Knicks play for the NBA title. They're playing the Houston Rockets, and all of a sudden on the big screen, you got the white Bronco chase. Again, probably the most fascinating live video maybe in the entire history of freaking television, man. We use the word polarizing way too much. I kind of feel like it dampens the word, but in this case with OJ and how people feel about him or how people felt about him, it truly is. And going back to Bomani with saying about social media, saw it all on Thursday. The funny memes, a lot of comical shit, a lot of, people who hate him. There are people out there, a lot of people, and you mentioned this, showing pictures. I got a couple friends. I'm not going to call them off by name. I feel like I should, but I won't. But they got a couple pictures with OJ. Rest in peace, OJ. And they got a picture, this girl with an OJ jersey on with OJ hugging her. I'm like, come on, man. That's not it. That's not it. But you just, the whole dynamic is just, oh man, it's just, it really is crazy. I never thought of that Peyton Manning. You know what? That might be the best comparison you've ever had in the history of this podcast. Of all your podcast appearances, that might be the first time I'd be like, holy shit, what a fucking great comparison.
That's what it was. The perception of him, and just like, just the national, like he was in movies and everything. Like there will never be,
everyone loved him.
Everyone loved him. There will never be another celebrity like that in Buffalo ever. And there's not that many in the world today. Like there's just not. Like in sports, and like that was transcendent, that did their own stuff with movies, and like he was hosting SNL when he was a player. He was doing colored. He was announcing games when he was a player still. Like that, you wouldn't see that.
And I remember. I was a very young kid, but I remember the Hertz car rental commercials that he was in. Yeah, pre murders, he was probably one of the most popular people on this earth. Forget about Buffalo.
And like I said, in Buffalo, they viewed him like a king, because again, he would always put Buffalo over. I remember like when he was on NBA, and again, this is a time when, in 1991, 92, whatever, you got ESPN that did like maybe like 30 minutes live a day, like of sports. And it wasn't like it is now where there's a billion talking heads. This is shrunk down very much. And you had one show on NFL NBC, and every Sunday at 12 o'clock it was on. And he would always be like, "Oh, my Bills!" Like that's how he would say it. Like, "My Bills are doing well." Like he would always. And I remember as a kid being like, "Yeah, he likes our Bills." Yeah, and then like he would. I remember 2 stories I remember about him was I was at the Bills Dolphins playoff game 91 44-34. He was there like on the sidelines, and I remember every time, like when halftime came, I remember him coming off the field, like because he was on the sideline, he was coming in the tunnel, and everyone gave him a standing ovation, and he like put his hand in the air, like, "Hey, like look," like everyone was like, "Juice!" Like it was that. And then you mentioned the Knicks thing, and like I remember I was working at a pizzeria, my parents' pizzeria. It's me, my sister, and this guy who was from New York, huge Knicks fan, doesn't care about OJ really all that much. Like okay, I don't care. Like his OJ, and he was so livid because they kept switching the games. Sure. At the end, they took it off, and I thought he was going to have an aneurysm because he was so pissed off. Like you had alluded to before. But yeah, he's it was
we ain't got to sell people on the popularity of OJ. I think everybody knows. Well, at least if you're over 30, 35 years old, for sure, you know how popular and polarizing of a guy.
But just as I said. There, like people may not know how he was a star here. He was like, he was big time in Buffalo, and that it struck at home way more here because again, like
because it's his whole it's his hometown. Some people perceive it that way.
Yeah, and that was the 70 Bills were not very good, and he was the one guy. It would be like comparing, like, I don't know, like. I know we probably don't like it, but like Jack Eichel a little bit, where like Jack Eichel was like the star of the Sabres, and like, hey, at least you can go down the arena and see Jack Eichel do well, even though they suck. That's kind of how OJ was. Like he
ran for 2,000 yards in 14 games. Exactly. He ran for 1,800 yards.
He did it in an era when the Bills were they only made.
Everybody knows that, though. Yeah, everybody knows that.
But I'm just trying to say like how popular he was. He was a diamond in a lot of rough there.
Yeah, for sure, man. My last take is that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I want to ask you this question.
You are getting you're getting. If this was a wrestling match, Joe is getting all his
shit. I'm getting all my stuff in. I get all my stuff in. I wanted to ask you, how did you feel about the Bills not acknowledging him at all? Like nothing, no tweets.
He's a fucking convicted, not a convicted murderer. He's an acquitted. He's a multi-murderer. And look. This was going to be my last take anyway on it. If you truly believe, and look, I'm not going to try to judge you too much, but if you truly believe in your heart of hearts that OJ is either A, he's innocent, or B, should be treated as innocent because he was acquitted of the charges, and if that's your mindset and you truly in your heart feel that way, then you should be feeling sympathy for him. You should be feeling like the world lost a great person. I don't think anybody reasonable is going to conclude that, though. My thoughts are with his family, because I've always wondered about this. Imagine being a kid or a close relative of fucking O.J. Simpson, knowing, hey, your father is a fucking serial murderer, your father this, your uncle this, your uncle that. I feel truly bad for them that they've had to go through this their whole life, and I'm sure it's just been now it's even more elevated in post-Seth. But no, I ain't got no issue with the Bills not acknowledging that. I wouldn't either. The NFL Hall of Fame did. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Bills,
yeah.
No,
did you ever think they should have took his name off the wall?
I would have. If it was my decision and I was responsible for making that decision solely, I would. I think I don't want to steal Tim Graham's take here because he said this on his show last week. It kind of lucked out a little bit. It's not the reason why, but the Bills are not bringing their wall of fame to the new stadium. So there's not going to be any debate. Like you and I could have shows worth of debates.
I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of Hall of Fame something there.
There's like
right?
hard. There's like going to be like an exhibit or something like that.
Yeah. So is OJ going to be in that? Well, is OJ going to be in that exhibit? Like, would you have him in that exhibit?
I'd say probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, because I wouldn't either. Because it's kind of like, here's the thing. Like, how many people really remember him? You have to be in your 50s, right? Like at least in your 50s to remember him. No, you have to be like 60s,
as a bill. You mean
as a bill? Yeah, you have to be in your 60s to remember him as like a right.
I'm in my early 50s and I don't remember him as a football player. I remember him being. I was too young to understand anything about him.
So you have to be in your 60s. Yeah, and by then that whole phase, they're gonna be they're gonna be dead. So like, why? I don't care if he's in the hall. Like, I never watched. I never had that connection. I had the celebrity connection because I was like, oh, Naked Gun, Nordberg, and he's a Bills backer, but I don't have that football connection.
Completely agree. I completely agree. I have no issue whatsoever with the Bills not even putting out a statement. It'll be
interesting to see if he makes it to the exhibit, because Ralph always said
he's not going to. I go ahead. I'm predicting he's not going to.
Ralph, because they used to ask Ralph all the time, and Ralph was like, I got other things to worry about, because Ralph loved him, because Ralph loved OJ, and I don't know why they asked him, and Ralph would always say, like, and no one ever, because we know Terry Pagula has talked 4 times in the last 20 years, it feels like. No one ever asked them, but like Ralph used to always say, like, I got bigger things to worry about, and just be kind of bristled at it.
I got about 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left in the show. Real quick, because I know you're a Cody Crybaby. Are you happy that Cody Rhodes won at WrestleMania? Yes. And again, literally, I got 3 minutes here to squeeze in at the end of the show. It's got to be done in a $1:20 here, or an hour 20. But just your real quick thoughts on WrestleMania. It certainly seems like the new chapter of the Bloodline's coming, which I like. We saw that on SmackDown this week. But all in all, WrestleMania weekend last week, pretty satisfied with how things went down?
Absolutely. The good guys won. The Crybabies won. It was great. It was awesome storytelling. Yeah. The company's been so much better since Vince was, we finally figured out he's a scumbag and he's a douchebag and he had no talent anymore. Whatever, but I digress. But yeah, it's been much better, the product. You can see it in the arena, you can see it in the ratings. But like, that story it will go down as one of the best stories I can think of in like the last 20 years.
Story? You talking about the story?
With Cody Rhodes, like from what he went through and losing, and like the stories. Like the only ones I can ever think of is like, Daniel Bryan when he like won but that was like 6 months, and that was kind of like a fluke. And
Cody's was better. It was more personal. Yeah, Cody's about his father, generations.
Yeah, generations, and then like how they had it to where everyone came back to interfere, because that's what happened the year before. And I wish it wasn't Undertaker. I wish it was Steve Austin. I guess
everyone says that.
It was supposed to be Steve, but Steve wanted more money. Like that would have been,
should have paid him, by the way.
What'd you say?
Should have, whatever he wanted, they should have paid him.
Yeah, because that would have been, we watched that like at when it was like 12:30, because I had to watch it on delay, but we were like, the gong was awesome, like the gong, and then Cena. I was
disappointed. I was disappointed when I heard the gong, because I wanted to hear the glass shatter.
No, I agree, but that was still fun.
I knew that was it.
That was still fun, but what they did with, like, I love The Rock's persona, like him going down to he swears he doesn't care anymore. He's just like, I'm in charge now. I can do what I'll just say this. In my opinion, what's happening with the Bloodline is I think Rock is going to do like a slow moving coup, and he's going to take over the Bloodline. Sure. And eventually it's going to be Rock, the new Rock, and Solo, and the new guy, I forgot his name. And then they have another guy, a Simone, who's coming in, who's like the Rock's cousin.
Jacob
Fatu. And I think they're going to have their own group. And then Roman's going to come back with the Usos, and that's going to be like the big thing. Like, and it's great storytelling. It's brilliant. Like it's so much better than the bipolar nut job that Vince was. But
it is. And the one thing I want to say too, just to end this with the main event of WrestleMania, when we talk about great storytelling, it was awesome seeing Cena, The Rock, Taker, all them come out and hit their moves on each other. But to me, my favorite part in terms of actual storytelling was Seth Rollins, the Shield music. He comes out and Roman Reigns makes a split decision. Yeah. And it's the storytelling to get his revenge, because he's still not over what Seth did. And instead of whacking Cody Rhodes with the chair, he whacks Seth Rollins, which opens up an opportunity for Cody. Just storytelling wise, I thought that was great. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode.
The CM Punk thing was real good too. The CM Punk.
It was. We'll talk about that next time. We'll talk about CM Punk next time. But anyway, follow Joe on Twitter, even though I don't. At Buffalo Wins.
Don't follow me or Pat.
Good conversation, man. Good talk.
I brought my B+ game. I'm a B+ player over here.
All right, I'll be back with a brand new episode. Anthony Marino, much of the chagrin of Joe, talking.
No, he's fine. I don't care. No, I'm fine with Marino 2.0. I don't care about mock drafts though. That's all. Go ahead. Bye.